We are back here on the Lynne Hayes Freeland Show. Mayor Bill Peduto is our guest, and I want to just keep the conversation going because, Mayor, one of the things that I have said often in addressing audiences or crowds or whatever, one of the things I have said is we have the data now. We know the numbers because the city commissioned this study, this report. And so now it's time to look for ways for corporate Pittsburgh to step up and say, here's the piece that I can bring to the table. Here's the piece that I want to bring to the table. Are we seeing that happen?
Yes. Yes. I mean, you nailed it. That's exactly, and that's what needs to happen. It has to be that the corporate leadership of Pittsburgh now realizes that we have a problem and that they have not just an opportunity, but a responsibility to help solve it. But it's not just the corporate leadership, it's organized labor. It's our philanthropic community. It's our major institutions, our hospitals and our universities. And even though everyone else is hurting right now, we have an issue around this that is an amazing opportunity to really take a giant step since 1968. Now, one example that I can tell you is one of the most alarming facts that came out of our report was looking at childbirth and looking at women and looking at it as a black and white issue, and finding that the results are two separate worlds. It's not a tale of two cities. It's not even a tale of a city and a third world. It's two separate worlds. And we have, whether it is through the pregnancy, whether it is stillborn births, or whether it is deaths during pregnancy, of lack of anything to be able to make those changes occur. So R.K. Mellon Foundation stood up and they went to McGee Women's Hospital and they said, we've got to solve this. And so starting with the baseline of the information that is now available, working towards finding the indicators of why it is that it's occurring, and then investing in, nutrition programs, providing for complicated pregnancies, OBGYN doctors who work in complicated pregnancies, and being able to provide education to first-time moms about not just the pregnancy process, but the assistance that they need during those first critical months of birth. This is a problem that can be solved, but you're not going to do it with the city government, with public works and public safety employees. And what we need is that type of cooperative spirit to work to be able to solve it.
Yeah, I think that whole issue around childbirth and infant mortality was startling to me because I remember probably 25 years ago, Black infant mortality was an issue in our area. And then I don't want to say we fixed the problem, but we certainly made it better. And so when we looked at that, and in my head, so often I've heard you speak and I've heard you talk about this is a city of eds and meds. And so when I heard that, and then I looked at the job situation for African-American women in particular in this city, it was mind-boggling to me that why are we a city of eds and meds and we are still struggling so far behind? So what about we've got all these educational institutions where we see disproportionate numbers of African-American women getting educated, but yet this is not a great city for Black women.
Yeah, well, the numbers actually will show that too, that the amount of students who are enrolled in our higher education universities beyond Pitt and Carnegie Mellon, but throughout all of them, the numbers and the ratios of Black women are very low. I don't think that we do a good enough job in preparing our kids for careers, and I'm not putting that blame at Pittsburgh Public Schools. That's just part of it. I think that one of the reasons that we created the Earn and Learn program was not just to give kids a summer job, but to actually get them into a corporate or nonprofit experience during the summer, so that when they leave there, they say, this is where I'm going to go to college, or they get the idea that I can work in banking. And it really is something where if you're not exposed to it, it's hard to dream it. So that's one small approach toward it. But, looking at an issue like diversity within the police force, just to take one example, I had a really good conversation last night with the head of 32BJ, the SEIU Northeastern representative. And the idea was, we have so many people working in our security system, and so many of the people who are security guards are Black. But we don't have a pipeway or a direct line to have them have the opportunity to apply and become a Pittsburgh police officer. And if you want to see diversity within the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police, it's not just about having diversity, it's having someone who grew up in the neighborhood, who knows who the community leaders are and who to go to, who understands when a situation is happening, who the individuals are, and somebody who the community knows. It's an old way of doing policing, but it's a very, very effective way. We have experiences where we've been utilizing different people, constables and others, for incidents within neighborhoods, and it never makes the nightly news because it works in a better way than sending police cars in.
So all of this happens in a time where the nation is looking at race relations. And many people are looking at the fact that many of our cities, and I'm going to put Pittsburgh in that category, still live by and large in segregated communities. Many of our worlds are still very much segregated. In fact, I say to people all the time that I wonder how many of my coworkers would really interact with people of color if it weren't for work. If they didn't come to work and they didn't get to know me at work, would they really know many other people of color? Do you think that, when you look at Pittsburgh's communities, and we have amazing communities, but our communities aren't that diverse either, do you think?
Well, I can look at it for 30 years in the East End, and I moved into the East End in 1983. And just seeing the difference between the past 10 years on Highland Avenue, as you go from Shadyside into East Liberty, it blends. And it used to be walls that were built up, and now we've built bridges between the communities. And some will look at it and call it gentrification, but I see it as a two-way street. And I see people from East Liberty now on Walnut Street and Ellsworth Avenue. I look at what basically is done by Transportation and Port Authority, Squirrel Hill. And I see more interaction between neighborhoods than I've seen before. What we don't have in Pittsburgh is a historically Black neighborhood for middle class and upper middle class families. And we really need to focus in on historic neighborhoods like Homewood in the Hill District, and Hazelwood, and even the Hilltop, go with all 4 H's, and try to find a way in order to build out first entrepreneurship and business opportunities and rebuild the business districts, and then finding the young families that are really looking for that type of an experience in order to raise their families. We're starting to see it a little bit in the Hill. Prices and values of homes are going up in the Hill. We're starting to see it in Homewood. We definitely are seeing it in Larimer. But we need to be able to really focus in on some key areas. We're working with City Council right now to provide funding that will be focused strategically into those key areas and key intersections to start to bring back the community through community investment and entrepreneurs from within, and then starting to provide those services that people would build and want to live in a neighborhood that have. And being centered around an Afrocentric arts, culture, faith, all the components that we used to have in this city when our Black communities were thriving middle class.
You mentioned, again, things I want to pick up on. We'll do that on the other side of this commercial break. Stick around. We have a lot more to talk about with Mayor Bill Peduto. We'll be right back.